Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and if you clicked on this video, you are just as desperate as I am for any news in regards to Dawntrail. Listen, I have no doubt Square Enix is giving the start of the year to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's kind of an important title, and it's hard to get excited for Dawntrail stuff or to push Dawntrail stuff when you've got that massive behemoth looming over you. But it just feels like we haven't gotten anything in a while. Heck, I don't even think we got like a media roundtable from JP FanFest, which is a staple, and it has been enough weeks at this point that if we were going to get one, we probably should have gotten it already. And let me tell you, I notice because every single day and every single week, I'm getting questions from people about when we should expect stuff. When is the next live letter? When should we expect the job action trailer? When is this and that? So I figured I'd make a video with what my expected timeline is leading up to Dawntrail. We don't have anything confirmed. We don't know when the next live letter is, but we do have patterns, and patterns have always given us really good and reliable guesses when it comes to stuff in the past. So that's what I'm going to be laying out to you. Past patterns that we are using to predict when we will get news about anything in regards to Dawntrail. So without further ado, let's get to it. Now, before we get started, this video has a sponsor. Magic Spoon is back again. Love getting to do this one every month. Magic Spoon is an adult quality cereal with childlike nostalgia. Enjoy a high protein cereal or treat bar with less sugar, high fiber, and all the dietary accommodations you may need. Now, this month they sent me their two newest treat bar flavors, blueberry muffin and double chocolate. I had these in my mailbox as soon as I got home from the gym, so perfect timing. I just came upstairs and immediately recorded. I'm a huge chocolate fiend, so I knew I was gonna love the double chocolate. But the blueberry muffin bar came surprisingly close. Both delicious, both hitting that sweet tooth that I have way too big a problem with, and both with only 1 gram of sugar. Now, if you'd like to try these new bars or one of their many cereal flavors while also supporting the channel, then click the link below and get some today. You can build your own custom box of cereal, including some of my favorite flavors like maple waffle, cinnamon roll, and birthday cake. Best of all, use my link and discount code Mr. Happy to get $5 off your box. Maybe use that discount and treat yourself to one of those new 2 treat bar flavors. And if you don't like it, Magic Spoon has a 100% happiness guarantee. Let them know and they'll refund you, no questions asked. So click the link below or scan the QR code on the screen and use code Mr. Happy to get $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/Mr. Happy to save $5 on your order. It even works in Canada and the UK. Thanks to Magic Spoon for sponsoring, and now on with the video. All right, so like I said, they're probably giving the remainder of the month of February and generally the start of the year to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth itself. I expect they'll also kind of free up their socials for the first week of March. Maybe that's when we'll start getting like some degree of news, like dates on when the next live letters are, whatever they're planning on doing. But that leaves March, and March is when I do think we're going to be getting our next live letter. And that's not based on as reliable a pattern as I normally base things on. Endwalker really threw things into flux with the digital FanFest and live letters, the way they had to handle everything. Definitely leaves a few more question marks in terms of my predictions. I don't feel as confident about them as I have before. But this in particular, after looking back at patterns for Stormblood and Shadowbringers, there really isn't a major pattern because the dates on everything are so significantly different. So Stormblood had its final FanFest in February, and then live letters at the end of April and the end of May. Yeah, that's kind of weird. They were only about a month apart from each other, and I suppose that could repeat here, even with the final fan festival being in January. Then you go over to Shadowbringers, and Shadowbringers had a live letter in November, February, and March, along with their fan festivals, but then they had a live letter in December as well for patch 4.5, I believe it was 4.56. So they just had a bunch of them crammed together. But after their March live letter, after the fan festival, they didn't do anything else until the job action stuff, which happened in May. So the only thing we can glean from this pattern is they haven't gone more than 2 months without a live letter. And that's really kind of just like a live letter pattern as a whole. Obviously we have broken that again with Endwalker, but in terms of a more normal schedule, that's expected. So the thought of them going from January to May without a live letter, I don't see that happening. There are still things that they probably want to talk about that aren't combat related, that they probably want to keep out of whenever they are planning on doing their job action trailer / breakdown, the usual stuff they've done, the combat live letter, I suppose we could call it. So for March, there's one major thing that stands out, and most of you probably already guessed this, and that of PAX. I think that they are probably going to do a presentation at PAX, and I think it's going to be largely focused on pre-order and release dates, as well as a showcase of the collector's edition, and probably just a bunch of recapping other than that. I don't actually expect a whole lot of new stuff to come out of a panel at PAX East or a stage at PAX East. So just those bare minimum things. If you're wondering about the benchmark, that's a maybe, but again, the benchmark does not have a very consistent pattern. Endwalker, it was like 6 months, I think more like 5 months before it actually released, and we've never had a benchmark that early. But when you look at the other expansions, the benchmark has actually been a lot closer to the actual release. I think in Shadowbringers, it was in May, right after that job action combat live letter. So it's a possibility to learn about it in March, but I'm not going to nail that down and say it's 100% because I just don't feel confident. In fact, if anything, I feel less confident than ever. I mean, we are talking about the character creator, including female Hrothgar, with the graphics update. I mean, they're probably not going to hand us a pre-graphics update benchmark. That would completely defeat the purpose of benchmarking your PC. So if there was ever going to be a really late release benchmark, this would be the one. And in fact, in Shadowbringers, the benchmark that included Hrothgar and Viera, that was the one that released super late as well. So just looking at that, I don't actually expect the benchmark before early June/late May. I also wouldn't be surprised to see some other news come out of that, some reminders. We do have the Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantasy XVI crossover event that's going to be taking place sometime in the first 10 days of April. They said early April, and for those who don't know, early means the first 10 days, middle means the middle 10 days, and late means the last however many days are left. This is something they've always done, and apparently it's a pretty common way of designating and breaking apart the months over in Japan and probably other countries as well. So we do have that to look forward to as well. So, early April, probably a couple of hours, and then you move on from there. It is what it is. I also won't be surprised if they take that time to announce when the release date for the second Final Fantasy XVI DLC is. PAX, another perfect place to do that, and that is slated for spring as well. So I expect there's going to be some pretty close to overlapping timings with the crossover event and the DLC release. And then April, outside of interviews, which I think will be much more prevalent throughout March and April, the big thing people are looking forward to is probably going to be in May with the Combat Live Letter. I would be shocked if this is any time but mid to late May. And even with mid-May, I mean more like the 18th, 19th, like the later parts of middle May, the last 15 days, I suppose, the second half of the month, if you will. Every time they've had a summer release timing for an expansion, May has been when the job action live letter has been. So it's safe to assume that it'll still fall into that range. With how things have been, early June wouldn't surprise me, but I'm going to go with pattern here and say that it'll be late May. This live letter will have the job action trailer, and Yoshi P normally goes in game to display some of the new skills and talk about some of the intricacies of certain jobs, especially ones that get major reworks. I know Dragoons and Astrologians are really looking at that live letter to see if they are still going to be playing those jobs after they actually change them going into Dawntrail. And again, I would expect the benchmark here is more likely given the scope of the benchmark itself, but that still remains to be seen. And the final big question is the release date. I guess the launch trailer, which is normally, 2 to 4 weeks before the actual expansion release is there, but let's be honest, you all just want to know when you're actually going to be able to play Dawntrail because you want to take off work. Now, don't take my word for taking off work because I'm going to give you a range. A lot of people have been very skeptical about the release date, thinking that, they said summer, it's probably going to be late July or August, who knows, maybe September. But we have a lot of stuff to refute that. And honestly, we have something I've never used for pattern recognition before, but I felt like it was a time to actually use it, a new indicator of when we may be getting Dawntrail. Now, for those who don't know, the global version of Final Fantasy XIV is not the only version. In China and Korea, the game updates at a completely different pace. They get their own live letters, and they even get their own fan festivals, covering a much more compact version of the information that we get spread out across 3 of them and the job action trailer and all that. They basically get it all crammed into one singular fan festival. Now, for Shadowbringers, the Chinese Fan Festival was on August 17th, about 7 weeks after the official early access date of the same expansion. For Endwalker, it was December 18th, a mere 2 weeks after. However, Endwalker was delayed, so it's really more like 4 weeks if you were to take the natural date, which, the date of this would have been decided long before the delay was actually decided. Now, the Dawntrail Fan Festival in China has gotten a date and is currently scheduled for August 3rd and 4th. So if they follow suit, Dawntrail should be out before then. So those of you who are really doom and glooming, this is a pretty good indicator that you probably won't have to wait till the end of summer to actually play Dawntrail. So let's go with the range here. At minimum, let's say conservatively that it's only 2 weeks after the early access date, as it was with the delayed Endwalker release. That gives us a July 23rd release date, with the early access the Friday before, the 19th of July. 4 weeks, I think, is a more reasonable location, and this is actually in line with my original prediction. It would be July 5th for early access, and then July 9th for the launch. However, if they base it more on Shadowbringers, which this is a more Shadowbringers-esque, I suppose, lead up to expansion than it is an Endwalker one, since everything was physical and all that this time around, that would be 6 weeks. So then it would be a June 21st early access with a June 25th release date. Now, keep in mind that June 21st to, I guess we'll say, the July 9th range, that is around when all expansions other than Endwalker have released, that kind of late June / early July moment. It was getting like a week later every time. It was like, I think like June 21st, the first time I think for Heavensward, and then like June 25th and then July 3rd. It's just always in that range. You get the point. I really actually wouldn't be surprised at that late June release because it matches statements that Yoshi P made at JP FanFest. Now, of course, he didn't confirm a date, but he said the team has internally a date that they are aiming for, but he's afraid of needing to issue a delay again, like he did with Endwalker, even though they have no plans to issue a delay, but he doesn't know. So now he wants to be a little more cautious and wait on the announcement of the release date. But he did say that it would be a real summer release date and not a Square Enix summer release date. Now, what he means by that's up for debate. It could mean like fiscally Square Enix summer, but fiscally a Square Enix summer, for those who aren't too aware, I believe would be, let's see, April, May, June, would be anywhere from July 1st all the way into, what is that, July, August? Yeah, sometime between July and the end of September. And he said that it would be a proper one, which would imply that if they're looking at proper summer versus a Square Enix summer, that means that there's not much of a window there. June ends up becoming kind of the one time to actually look at as the release. And he even made mention on stage that Final Fantasy 16, they said summer, everyone doom and gloomed it, but they released it in June. So I think they are aiming for a June release with Dawntrail. Not nearly as bad as some of us were expecting after how long our patch cycles have. Well, I was going to say how they felt, but realistically how they've actually been over the course of Endwalker, the entire expansion. So I'm going to hold my prediction at that like post July 4th weekend. I don't think they care about American Independence Day in terms of determining a release date. But at the same time, I'm kind of swayed towards that June date. I think that is a more likely date based on their own statements and based on the patterns from the Chinese Fan Fest before and the expansions before as well. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to predict my logical prediction of June 21st, June 25th, but I'll still lock in. I'll still say if it's not the original prediction I made, the July 9th one, that I was wrong. I'll at least admit to that. I'm not going to keep swapping every time I think it's changed. And over those months, what are you going to do? Well, outside of a second Moogle Tome event, a seasonal event, or however many seasonal events we get, the Final Fantasy 14 and 16 collaboration, the potential return for stuff like Yokai, stuff like the Final Fantasy 15 event. They've not confirmed those things. They've just said they'd like to do them. So you have to bear that in mind. That's what you're going to have. I mean, the raid tier's unlocked now, but we are in that lull. So I do encourage you to enjoy the very busy gaming season we have. I mean, as I'm recording this, Elden Ring just announced that they're going to be doing a showcase for their DLC soon. On top of that, you have Dragon's Dogma 2, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, Unicorn Overlord. Man, and I'm forgetting a bunch of games, but I know there's a whole lot more. And there's been surprises early in this year already. I know we're not made of infinite money and can't just buy and play all these games, but at the very least, we have stuff to occupy us. And while that's not an excuse for the general load time in Dawntrail, I'm in that mode where I'm kind of grateful that there is a bit of a downtime. But anytime there is news, predictions, discussions to be had, I'll have those videos to you right away. So with that, thank you for watching this video. Let me know what your predictions are in the comment section of the video below. If you agree with mine, if you think it's going to be different, or if you're just disappointed in your wait, whatever you want to say, throw it down there. Just try to be wholesome. I know you won't be, but it's fine. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care. Take care.